Senator Elizabeth Warren, who did raise the question with him about the money that he has made out of lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies, specifically vaccine makers.
Welcome to the Debrief with the Washington Examiner. I'm Tiana Lowe Doescher, here with our editor-in-chief, Hugo Gurdon. Hugo, even though Joe Biden is gone and Donald Trump is in, the repercussions of Bidenomics is not. The Federal Reserve, after 2 consecutive cuts to the federal funds rate, decided to hold interest rates. And incoming President Donald Trump, not very happy.
No, well, perhaps they're doing him a favor. They want, obviously inflation is not entirely under control. It's still trending above the targets. I think one of the most interesting things about this is not just the economic side of it, but the political side. It's absolutely extraordinary to see Democrats talking about Donald Trump's promise to lower prices and him not keeping these promises. He's been in office for less than 2 weeks. And if you think about the way that the Democrats were, when Biden came into office and there was inflation, they said it was temporary. I remember the White House briefings were talking about it as being a kind of upper class problem, when in fact, of course, inflation is very much the worst of problems for people at the lower end of the income scale. So it was temporary. And then Democrats said it was Putin's fault, and that because of the invasion of Ukraine. Then they passed the amazingly misnamed Inflation Reduction Act, which was pouring billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fiscal gasoline onto the inflation fire. And they achieved 9% inflation, I think it was by June 2022. So it's absolutely extraordinary. The political aspect of inflation is absolutely the most fascinating to see. Suddenly the Democrats are, they've had their Damascene conversion. They think inflation is bad. And of course, President Trump is to blame.
Yes, and it's not even borne out in the data, because although we don't have inflation data yet for January in terms of the BLS, which tracks everything from banana prices to gasoline to the price of seeing your healthcare provider, we do have egg prices about every week from the Agriculture Department. And, they keep on talking about the egg prices because of the avian flu. Egg prices went from being around for $60 a dozen to almost $6 or $6 nationally, almost $8 in New York and California. And that's while Joe Biden was still in office in January.
Right. And of course, this is another gift in the long term or medium to long term for President Trump, because egg prices are going to fall and he's going to be able to boast about a 30% reduction in egg prices. Frankly, it's not because of what he's doing, but he's going to be able to claim the credit for it.
Yeah, and something that I think demonstrated Democrats' inability to make the most of a political moment. Most of Donald Trump's nominees so far have had pretty smooth sailing. You had lots of Democrats crossing over to approve, even the people who aren't unanimous, like Marco Rubio, Kristi Noem getting through safely, Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary. RFK Jr. for HHS Secretary should be one of the most controversial picks, and yet the Democrat talking point against him is that you used to be pro-choice, but now you're not. Nothing about the vaccines, nothing about the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, they're in a difficult position. I mean, one of the reasons why he is a shaky candidate is because he is a left-wing Democrat. The Democrats don't quite know how to attack that. I want to give a little bit of credit to someone who I usually do not give a great deal of credit to, and that's Senator Elizabeth Warren, who did raise the question with him about the money that he has made out of lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies, specifically vaccine makers. And she asked him to undertake that he would not make money in the years after he ceased to be HHS secretary. And it exposed something which we've written about, which is there's a whole raft of conflicts of interest with RFK's candidate nomination. And the ironic thing here is he's been nominated as HHS secretary by President Trump as essentially part of the deal that got him to support President Trump's candidacy. The Republicans could do Donald Trump a great favor by nixing this conflict. It would mean that Donald Trump had not betrayed his promise. He'd nominated him. He'd gone through the process. The Republicans could make sure that Donald Trump would not then saddle with a liberal Democrat and frankly, an oddball running HHS.
Yeah, and when we think about the mandate that President Trump has, and it's definitely a much greater mandate and a much more coherent mandate than it was the first time around, we think about beyond the basic kitchen table issues of inflation, safety, border. It is things like overturning DEI, gender insanity, all of that, the security state. RFK Jr. has made $2.5 million on trying to get the HPV vaccine off the market, which, in Australia is slated to eliminate cervical cancer in the next generation. Is that really part of the MAGA mandate? Like, will there be a strong political cost if you have a Bill Cassidy that votes against?
No, I don't think so. It isn't really part of it, and it's always been a bit of an odd matchup, and it particularly is odd with the sort of what President Trump likes to suggest is a kind of common sense revolution that he's bringing. There was all sorts of wacky, wokey policies and ideologies and ideas that were in the Biden administration and affected the Biden administration. Part of what, or a lot of what, got Trump elected was the sort of promise to blow all of that nonsense away.
Yes.
And there is something about the RFK nomination which suggests that nonsense is not being blown away. And as I say, the Republicans could do him a favor in the Senate by rejecting the nomination.
I always say, in a different universe, Operation Warp Speed would be, one of the first 3 rooms in the future Donald John Trump presidential library, because that was his space race in a way. Hugo, thank you so much. To read more of Hugo's brilliant analysis and check out our magazine, go to washingtonexaminer.com. We will be back next week.